Research from Columbia University found that the average person is psychologically manipulated through conversation at least 4 times per day, and they never notice it. Not once. 4 times every single day. Someone asked them the right question at the right moment, and without realizing it, they handed over exactly what was wanted. Today, that stops. These are not physical traps. There is no lock, no cage, no obvious danger. They come disguised as concern, as curiosity, as friendship, as love, and the people asking them, consciously or not, have learned that 7 specific questions can bypass your defenses faster than any argument, any threat, or any ultimatum ever could. After this, you will recognize every single one of them. You will see the mechanics underneath. You will understand why they work on nearly everyone, and exactly why the Sigma male refuses to take the bait. Once you see these questions clearly, you cannot unsee them. 1-3 Min Question 1. What are you thinking right now? On the surface, this sounds like intimacy. It sounds like someone cares enough to want inside your mind. But before you answer, ask yourself, why do they need to know? What will they do with the information once they have it? Here is the psychology. Dr. Robert Cialdini, in his landmark research on influence and persuasion, identified what he called the reciprocity of disclosure. When someone asks an intimate question and you answer, you feel compelled, psychologically, almost physically compelled, to keep going, to give more, to go deeper. Because the act of answering creates an implicit contract. You opened a door, now you must walk through it. This is precisely why therapists are trained extensively on when to ask this question and when not to. In a clinical context, it is a tool for healing. In the hands of someone with a different agenda, it is a lever. And once they've used it on you successfully once, they know the mechanism. They know where the door is, they know how to open it. The Sigma male recognizes this not with suspicion, but with clarity. He asks himself one question before he answers any intrusive question. Did this person earn this? Is this the right moment? Or is this designed to pull something out of me that will be used later? His answer, when the question comes from an unearned source, is calm and complete. A slight pause, a steady expression. Nothing specific, just processing. Full stop. No elaboration, no apology for the silence that follows. The discomfort of that silence belongs to them, not to him. Question 2, don't you trust me? This one is more dangerous, because it doesn't just extract information, it weaponizes your desire to be seen as a good person. Think about every time you've heard this phrase. It almost always comes after you've shown hesitation. After you've declined to share something, declined to commit, declined to follow someone else's lead on something that doesn't feel right. And the question is engineered to make your caution look like a character flaw. Your instinct, which is correct, becomes evidence against you. Psychologists call this moral licensing in reverse. Instead of giving you credit for rational behavior, it strips you of it. The message underneath the question is, a good person would have no walls here. If you have walls, you must not be a good person, or you must not care about this person. Pick one. Either way, you lose. Here is what the Sigma male knows. Trust is not proven by dismantling your own defenses. It is proven by a person consistently showing they don't need you to. Any person who responds to your hesitation with "don't you trust me" is not asking about you. They are revealing something critical about themselves. His response, not defensiveness, not explanation. Just trust is something I show through consistent action over time. What makes you ask? Turn the question back, then wait. Watch the next sentence carefully. The manipulator always reveals themselves in it. 3-6 Min Question 3. Why are you always so serious? Disguised as lighthearted teasing, this is a social conformity weapon. Its purpose is to make you feel that your depth, your standards, your deliberateness are a problem that requires correction. This tactic has been documented extensively in social psychology under the term normative social influence pressure. It is the use of informal group expectations to make outlier behavior feel shameful. When someone says, "You're so serious," what they are actually communicating is this: your calibration is making mine look shallow. Adjust yourself to protect my comfort. History is full of men who refused that adjustment. Marcus Aurelius, who wrote privately for decades about the weight of empire and the weight of being a man, never once apologized for the gravity he carried. He understood, as recorded in his own words in the Meditations, that the world will always attempt to drag the contemplative man down to the level of noise. Because noise is comfortable. Noise requires no accountability. Noise doesn't make anyone feel implicated. The Sigma male doesn't get defensive about his seriousness. He doesn't try to perform levity to prove he can have fun. He smiles slightly, calmly, and continues being exactly what he is. That non-reaction is more powerful than any comeback. It communicates something that words cannot. Your opinion of my emotional temperature is not data I require. Question 4. You think you're better than everyone, don't you? This is possibly the most sophisticated trap on this entire list. because it is almost impossible to answer correctly in the conventional sense. Say no, and you've surrendered your confidence to reassure someone who is threatened by it. Say yes, and you've confirmed the narrative they were already trying to build. Either way, they win the frame, but this question has a tell. It is always, without exception, asked by someone who feels threatened, not by your arrogance, but by your self-sufficiency, by your lack of need for their approval. The Sigma male does not think he is better than everyone. He simply does not require everyone's validation to function. And for people who need constant social mirroring to maintain their sense of worth, that self-sufficiency looks exactly like condescension. Stanford psychologist Carol Dweck, in her research on mindset and external validation, found something striking. People with high external validation dependency consistently misread confidence as arrogance. Not because the confident person is doing anything wrong, but because their independence highlights the observer's own dependence. It is a mirror they didn't ask to look into. The Sigma male's response to this question is simple. He does not take the bait. He might say, "I don't measure myself against other people." And then he stops, because anything beyond that is an attempt to manage someone else's insecurity. That is not his job. That has never been his job. 6-9 Min Question 5. If you really cared about me, wouldn't you? Finish that sentence with anything. Tell me what's wrong. Be there for me right now. Just do this one thing. The specific request is almost irrelevant. The structure of the sentence is the trap. This is called conditional love framing, and it is one of the oldest manipulation structures in recorded human psychology. The sentence links your compliance with your worth, specifically your worth as someone capable of caring. If you don't do the thing, you don't care. If you don't care, you are deficient. The logic appears airtight, until you examine the premise it is built on. The premise is this, that love and loyalty are proven through specific acts, on someone else's terms, decided unilaterally by the person asking. This is not how healthy relationships function. This is how control functions. There is a meaningful difference, and the Sigma male knows it. He learned this, often the hard way, by watching what happened after he complied. He did the thing, he proved the care, and then weeks or months later, a new version of the question arrived, because the goal was never the specific ask. The goal was establishing that the question works. That posing it creates movement. Once that's established, the question will return endlessly in new forms until something breaks it. Once he saw the pattern, he broke it. His answer now separates the manipulation from the underlying need. I care about you. That doesn't mean I'll do everything framed as a test of that care. What do you actually need? Address the real need. Refuse the frame, every time. Question 6. Why can't you just be normal? This question is designed to make you abandon who you are in exchange for social ease. And it almost always comes from someone who is deeply invested in your staying exactly as you are, because your growth threatens their position in your life. Psychologist Abraham Maslow identified something in his research that rarely gets discussed in mainstream coverage of his hierarchy of needs. He observed what he called self-actualization anxiety within social groups, the discomfort that communities feel when one member begins to outpace the group's established ceiling. When you start rising, reading differently, earning differently, expecting more from yourself and your time, someone in your orbit will eventually ask some version of this question. It is not a question, it is a pressure valve. Normal, of course, means, like us, at our level, following our script. The Sigma male understands that normal is a statistical average of other people's accepted limitations. He is not on a mission to become a better version of the average. He is on a mission to become a better version of himself. Those are entirely different projects with entirely different compasses. He does not explain this. He does not justify it to people who didn't ask a genuine question. He recognizes it internally without drama as confirmation that something is working, and he keeps moving. 9-12 Min Question 7. What do you actually want from life? This one is different from every question before it. It doesn't come from enemies. It doesn't come from manipulators most of the time. It comes from people who love you, from thoughtful strangers, from quiet moments at 3 in the morning when the noise stops and you're alone with yourself. And it is the most dangerous question on this list, not because it is weaponized, but because most people answer it with someone else's answer. They say security, status, a good family, success. Because those are the answers the culture handed them at 18, and they never went back to examine whether they actually fit. They've been chasing a definition of a good life that was written by someone else, for someone else, in a context that may have nothing to do with who they actually are. Viktor Frankl, the Austrian psychiatrist who survived 3 Nazi concentration camps and went on to found an entire school of psychotherapy, wrote in Man's Search for Meaning that the primary psychological crisis of modern life is not trauma. It is not deprivation. It is emptiness. what he called the existential vacuum, the condition of having no authentic answer to this question, of living a life filled with motion and completely empty of direction. He watched men in the camps who had every external reason to collapse and didn't, and men who had every external reason to survive and didn't. The difference, every single time, was whether they had an answer to this question that was genuinely their own. Here is what separates the Sigma male from the majority in this one specific and critical way. He has done the uncomfortable work of sitting with this question alone, not with a mentor, not with an influencer telling him what a man should want. Alone, with nothing but silence and honesty and enough time to let the performative answers fall away. He has edited his answer. He has returned to it. He knows which parts of his ambition are authentic and which parts are theater, things he told himself he wanted because they would look impressive, because they would earn approval from people he doesn't even respect. A man who does not know what he wants is extraordinarily easy to steer. You can offer him almost anything, validation, status, belonging, comfort, and he will chase it, because he has no internal compass strong enough to compete with whatever you're holding in front of him. A man who knows exactly what he wants is nearly impossible to manipulate, because when any of these 7 questions arrives, in any form from any source, he has a reference point. He can hold the question up against his actual values and ask himself, does this move me toward what matters or away from it? That internal check takes less than a second once it is trained, but it stops everything. This is why Marcus Aurelius kept his journal, not for legacy, not for the historians. He wrote every morning to keep his own answer sharp. To prevent the weight of empire, the praise, the flattery, the requests, the political pressure, from gradually, quietly replacing his own internal voice with something louder and emptier. You do not need to rule Rome to apply this discipline. You need 15 minutes, a blank page, and enough honesty to hear what you actually think instead of what you've been told to think. Start there, tonight, not next week. If something in this video hit a nerve, if you recognized one of those 7 questions from somewhere specific in your own life, from someone specific, then you already know you're in the right place. This channel exists for men who are done operating on autopilot, men who want to understand the dynamics underneath every conversation, every relationship, every system they move inside of. That awareness is not paranoia. It is the beginning of genuine freedom. Subscribe. Not because you want more content, but because you want more clarity. Hit the notification bell, because this work continues every single week and the next piece may be the one that changes how you see everything. Here is the final thought, and I want you to carry it. You will be asked all 7 of these questions again. Perhaps this week, perhaps today, perhaps by someone you love deeply and trust completely. The goal here is not to make you paranoid. It is not to close you off from every human being who dares to ask you something probing. Human connection requires vulnerability. The Sigma male is not a fortress, he is a man with a gate. He decides who comes in and when. The goal is simply this: 1 breath, 1 second of pause before you answer, long enough to ask yourself, what is this question actually asking for? What happens if I answer it the way they're hoping? Does that serve me or only them? Most of the time, the answer will be harmless. Most people around you are not calculating. Most questions are just questions. But sometimes, that 1 second of awareness is the entire difference between a decision you own and a decision you made for someone else, inside a frame they constructed, in a direction you never consciously chose. Socrates said the unexamined life is not worth living. The Sigma male adds 1 line to that. The unexamined question is just a trap. Know the difference. SEOTAGS. Sigma male, Sigma mindset, dark psychology, Stoicism, manipulation tactics, how to spot manipulation. Sigma male psychology, Stoic mindset, Sigma male questions, psychological manipulation, high performance mindset, dark psychology tricks, Stoicism and psychology, wealth mindset, Sigma male behavior description. Most men get manipulated every single day without realizing it, not through force, but through questions. In this video, we break down the 7 questions that Sigma males have learned to see through immediately, and why these questions work so devastatingly well on everyone else. Drawing from the psychology of Robert Cialdini, Viktor Frankl, Carol Dweck, and the Stoic philosophy of Marcus Aurelius, this is a deep dive into the mechanics of manipulation, identity, and self-mastery. If you've ever said something you regretted because of how a question was framed, if you've ever complied with something that felt wrong because of the guilt a single sentence triggered, this video will show you exactly why and exactly what to do instead. This is Stoicism meets dark psychology. Practical, specific, and built for men who are serious about their mental architecture. 0000, the shocking truth about daily manipulation. 0045, question 1. What are you thinking? 0220 Question 2. Don't you trust me? 0400 Question 3. Why are you so serious? 0530 Question 4. You think you're better than everyone? 0700 Question 5. If you really cared, you would. 0840 Question 6. Why can't you just be normal? 1010 Question 7. The most dangerous question of all 12. 30. The one practice that makes you unmanipulable.